call prior clients. Just check in on them. How are you doing? What's going on? The amount of money that I have made and that I've seen firms make with that one call who's like, oh yeah, I was in an accident last week. It didn't hurt in the moment. I'm in pain now. Like, let's sign back up. And I'm just like, mind boggling how often things like that happen. And look, it probably says a bunch about me that they didn't call immediately, that they waited for us to call them randomly the next week. I will take that. But like, you will find so many, or oh my God, my neighbor had something, or
Yeah.
you'll call them in the next week. It's so funny. You called me last week and then I just happened to see this. Like you will, what is it? Like,
Manifest. You absolutely will.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you a
And
quick story if I can.
yeah, of
But
course.
this I was so proud and envious of this idea. One of our clients had. I never had this idea. He hired someone through us. He's out in San Francisco, Oakland area, and is a full-time person, marketing person. But the first project he gave them was call every single past client, which is what you just said, but not necessarily just to drum up more work. But he only had like 3 Google reviews, right? He went from 3 to like 70 something in 3 months. Just by having a consistent person, because we're never going to do that. We're never going to pick up the phone and just call like crazy as lawyers.
We're not even going to send them a bill. So like,
Yeah,
clearly,
right.
this is not our,
Like, why are you calling me? I'm ready to pay you. Oh no, don't, just wait till I send you the bill. But please leave me a review. And he found so many people were more than happy to leave him that review. And that, as again, more than me, but that has a huge impact on your searchability and visibility and all those other things,
well,
especially organic. So,
and I'll take that a step further. So, obviously getting whatever it is, 70 reviews in 3 months. So when you do any marketing, there will be consistent things that those clients shared in those 3 months about what they liked, why they left the review, because you were super communicative, because you made them feel at ease, because you did a great job on the case, because whatever it was. Guess what? That becomes your marketing as to why they should hire you. That becomes the stuff you start putting out there for your, unique selling proposition. Like, we all want to say we're client centric, but like, look, here's 70 clients in the last 3 weeks that said I was actually putting them first, or I was actually answering their calls, or whatever it was. Like, hammer that stuff. It's so powerful.
absolutely. And this is fun for us to talk about. You're very business minded. It's like we get excited with all these new ideas. I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to tell all the rest of our clients they need to do that. And it could be a lot of fun when you delegate, right? And for some reason, some people have to delegate as like this dirty word. Like, you're making someone take out your trash. Like, please, God, do you know how many people want to get an in with a lawyer and learn about what they do and how law firms work? They're happy to take whatever task they can off of you and just start to get in the door, especially because, another one of our clients, I think he's got like 20 staffers, as we call them. His first one he hired was so good. She's now his office manager, and he's got a pretty big law firm. And so you're not delegating garbage to somebody. You are giving someone an opportunity who's asking for the opportunity, who then has the potential to grow and figure out what they like and don't like. I mean, then you're just helping someone's life. What could be better than that?
Yeah. Well, and along those points, for the stuff that has to be local, like, I've never hired somebody to take out my garbage, but like, literally, I've had a personal assistant who was, I'm not a dry cleaning guy, but like, stuff like that.
Right.
And we hired a local law student and we paid them slightly above minimum wage. And we made sure that 5 or 10 hours a week, they were spent watching other things. We connected them with judges to go to court. They sat in on stuff. So here they are now, like either, senior year of undergrad or first or second year of law school. They've got more hands-on experience than anybody else in their age range. We can schedule 5 hours a week to answer whatever questions come up so they can get the most amount out of this. And I guarantee you, they will grind for you in the smartest way. And they will come back as lawyers. They will become referral sources. They, like, one of the people that I hired that way ended up being the county court supervisor for the state attorney's office. 5-6 years after this. Like, it's crazy to see what will happen when you treat the person right. And so, yeah, dude, we're speaking the same language here.
Yeah, let me just iterate more on that point. Of course, I talk about virtual staffing and on offshore hiring and that, but having a steady pipeline of people, if you're near a law school, right, or even a college, that you're also helping for those reasons, it's just another smart way to do business.
Totally. And it's the buy-in, right? Like, it's interesting to me, this concept of like, what is this job worth from a salary standpoint? And I think we all have to have our worth as the employee, but from the employer perspective, it should be your job to make that job worth more to your employees in every way you can, whether that's the flexibility for them to live their lives, whether it's the training they want for the next level, whether it's letting them know they are capable of being a lawyer, whether it's letting them know they are capable of working at a, giant firm. You'll get a lot of people that, like, one of our hires, so we're in Orlando, one of our hires came from SeaWorld. And here she was, like, just running people through the line of SeaWorld and wanted to be a paralegal. And now, like, working with us, we're like, you could be a lawyer. Do you see the lawyers that we're talking to? Do you see, it's like, you are of that caliber? It's crazy to see. And whether that's, offshore or not, people are people. So when you treat them right and you give them the opportunity to learn and grow, you're going to get amazing results from, the right person in the right seat.
100%. It's absolutely true.
All right. So anything else on the what to delegate side? Because then I want to talk to like best delegation tips, like how we get this done correctly.
Yeah, before we talk about that, right? I mentioned four main things, but let's say you have someone in office that does all those things for you, but you don't have a personal assistant. If you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant. So one of the things that we don't realize is, going back to the Beyonce comment, we all have the same amount of time in a day, but how we spend our time is so disparate. And being intentional with saying, there's an exercise you can do where you can take 1 day or 10 days or 5 or whatever, write down everything you do, just make a big long list, and then put it into 4 quadrants, right? What am I good at that I like? What am I good at I don't like? What am I bad at I like? What am I bad at I don't like, right? Bad, you delegate all those, and you probably only hold on to what do I like and what am I good at? And you just created a whole position for somebody. Again, things need to get done in your business, right? In your personal life, but you don't need to be the one to do them. And so my business partner and I, we go through this exercise quarterly where we talk about, like, what are we doing that we don't want to be doing, and how do we get that off our plate so we don't start to backspin and slow our growth and say, a year from now, we're going to say, oh my gosh, why haven't we grown? Well, that's because we're doing activities to keep us at this level, not at the next level we want to get to.
Well, it's interesting. I know I'm going to credit this to Jim Hacking, whether he came up with it or somebody else. Like the saying that everybody always throws around is if somebody can do it 80% as well as you, you delegate it and have them do it. And I always thought that was kind of defeatist. So Jim had the add-on, because then even if you're going to take it to being 100%, you have, in theory, 5 times as much time to do that, right? Like if you can get 5 different briefs 80% of the way done, you can get all of them 100% at the same time it take you to do one from scratch. But the addition to that is you're going to find so many things that person's going to do 120% as well as you, because they're doing it 1,000, like medical requests, medical records requests in PI. We do, I don't even want to, 60 of them a week at a not relatively large firm. Yeah. The person who does them has come up with so many of these little tweaks, like, well, hey, if we batch, all of them from this one place and do all of them on a Friday, they'll usually get it back to us that day because they're not as busy. All right, for this one, we got to get it to them on Monday so that, it gets in the top of the hopper for the next week. Like, it's so interesting to see those things that I would never come up with, that I would never be able to execute on, that would make it work worse.
You could come up with it, but only if you spent 100% of your time in it, where then you could, like, you gave yourself the space to come up with a solution, right? And if you did that, you would then have neglected all the other things that would have made way more sense for you to spend your time on. Does that make sense? Like, if you, Jordan, if you spent a month as a medical records clerk, right, and that's all you did, you would come up with a lot of cool ways to do it better, right?
Maybe. I don't know. You might be giving me too much credit.
Well, okay, but I think you would. But that time could be spent better so many other places. And the fact that someone you hired came up with really cool systems, that brings a smile to my face. It's such a fun experience when somebody you bring in makes your business better, And
it's crazy. I don't know how much you read into like other businesses. Walmart is like the king of this one. They have an all office newsletter. And so they've had so many things, and I can't give you examples off of my head, but there's so many like common things at Walmart that started with like some random cashier having this idea, and it made its way in the newspaper, and now or the internal newspaper, and now every Walmart does it that way. And it's just crazy to see, like, even, you're sitting here as a 2 to 20 person law firm. We're talking about 200,000 person companies that still have the benefit of getting that little bit of insight, that little bit of exponential growth from everybody there.
Yeah, well, Walmart's really good. I just got done reading Made in America, you know, and that they're fun to read about because they put a lot of cool things in place. So, yeah.
All right. So anything else before we dive into the how to delegate? Best practices, best tips.
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So what are the ways that you see being the most effective to get things off of your plate and get them done correctly?
A systematic order of delegating. So let's say you hire the billing clerk, for example, right? You should have a plan for day 1, for day 3, for day 5, for week 2, 3, 4, and 5, so that it's on your calendar, it's on their calendar, or whoever's training this person. Say, on day 1, we're going to give you this, and we're gonna record it on a video, and on day 2, we're going to check in to see how you did. And if you have questions, go back to the video because we're going to record it. And then if you still don't know, that means that something was left out of the recording, and we'll fix that. So the next person we train, we already have a library, but you know, so you'll help us get better. But now we're giving you feedback on day 2 for one task, and then we're going to introduce something else. And then day 3, we're going to check in on those 2 things, and then day 5, maybe on 3 things. And you slowly start to bring someone on board in a systematic way where you tell them ahead of time, this is when I'm going to check in, and this is what. Okay. And it could be done faster, it could be done slower. It depends on the position. If it's answering the phones, you want to, you know, you're going to put more time in day 1 than you would on maybe another position, right?
Well, and the size of your firm will dictate the speed too, because if it's when it's your first employee, you still have to do your job, so it's harder to get more things onto them. Whereas at the point that you're, 10 people bring on an 11, cool, you have 45 minutes with everybody throughout the day to hear some of their stuff.
Exactly. And so going back to my first example, you hire your first person, right? You give them your calendar, your email, the billing, and then guess who can help you train when you hire a full-time billing clerk, right? Or your next person. It's the person you already hired, who's already been doing it. So as you grow, you can use your resources to help train, the other new people. So it's not like, oh man, I want to hire someone, but I don't want to spend the next month training them, because we've all been there. And again, those are the mindset things that creep up, which prevent us from becoming better and bigger versions of ourselves. Again, I've never heard anyone say, become a smaller version of yourself in order to do great things with your law firm.
Yeah, well, like we had Adam Williams on a couple months ago, and he's like, everybody's first day, basically, like they get a tour of the office, they get to see where the fridge and bathroom are, they get handed 2 books, and like that's it. Like just hang out, read through some of the stuff, have fun, like just understand that everybody's learning everything from scratch. So you may not be able to want to dump everything on them at one shot. I do want to geek out for 1 second. Literally this morning we were in our meeting and found out the Google Meet now has a transcription feature. So it will real-time transcribe. We were trying to screw with it. Like we were trying to throw out bad words and talk over each other, and it nailed it. It actually bleeps out actual bad words. It nailed everything except for like proper names, like specific names. It didn't know the difference between, Smith and Jones and whatever. But oh my God. So when you were doing this stuff, you can create your own Google Meet. If they're in it and you're in it, or whatever it is, you can screen record actually doing it, and it will transcribe it in like 5-second delayed real time really well, which we're trying to figure out. We tested this morning. So I'm thinking it's going to keep that in with the recording. There's some way to access the actual transcript. I need to confirm that part, but it was insane because at the least when you watch the video, you'll have the transcription in the video. So we'll see how that turns out.
That's awesome. Again, technology can also help you, with adding resources and bandwidth, right? It's just that someone is going to have to teach you how to use Google Meet and use the system and where it gets stored and all that. So it's not always hire someone new is the answer. Sometimes it is, let's utilize this piece of technology.
All right. So we've got our, day 1, day 3, day 5 plan. We're walking them through some stuff. We've got some recordings. They can check back on the video. What do we do next?
Create a weekly scorecard. So for most positions, and marketing is the easiest one, and I realize some positions are harder than others, but if you say, like, I'll give you projects that are harder to measure, but weekly, these are the things you have to get done, right? You have to do X amount of social media posts, you got to do one newsletter, you got to do one blog, you got to make 15 calls to past clients, like we talked about. Then at least people know what they're going to be judged and scored on, and when I hear people say, well, isn't that like micromanaging? It's the opposite of micromanaging. It's like hiring someone and they're like, well, how do you judge success? And I have been asked that question now when we're interviewing people a lot more than I used to be. Like, how do you judge success in this position? What a great damn question for someone who's going to work for you to ask. It's like, we've all had that experience where you thought you were doing good, and then you're getting energy like, well, I don't know, what am I supposed to be doing? No one ever put that in writing. So, put that in writing and then find out what people are good at, and then start giving them more capacity. Because if you laid out the scorecard and 3 weeks later they're 100%, 100%, well, maybe you can double it, or maybe you can add 50% more to it. But if you're not doing the consistent weekly, feedback and weekly discussions with that employee or team member, however you want to refer to them, then you're just never going to know.
And I love that, put it in writing. I want to add you're not writing it in stone. So exactly what you talked about, like you can edit it. And honestly, like this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about people making the system better. You may get an employee who does, let's say you give them 10 things that they need to do every week. They may come to you in 2 months and say like, hey, I think this is more impactful talking to prior clients. I think this is more impactful posting on Instagram versus Facebook. Like you may get feedback on them actually tweaking their own scorecard to make it impact whatever bottom line, whether that's more client referrals, whether that's more new cases, whether that's more leads, whether it's better leads, like whatever that's going to be. It's crazy to see because you've given them the right guidepost for them to follow through, right? Like they've got the band, this is where I'm supposed to stay. And now they can really figure out this part works better than this, as opposed to, you're right, just being like, I don't know, we'll judge it if, do I feel like you're doing a good job? That's how you'll be judged, which sucks. It sounds cool, but it sucks in the moment.
No, yeah, it's terrible. And when you talk about using your own discretion, experience, common sense to a position where you can give your employer feedback and say, this is how I could be doing better. One, you need to create the space for that. And two, you need to hire the type of people who have that ability. And that's important as well.
So I know this is going to be a little bit different in everything, but like, how much are you micromanaging people on the beginning? Like checking to make sure it's right, giving them feedback on every brief or motion? Like how does that play into this? Is that just part of the day-to-day plan?
It depends who you ask, right? The managing partner in my law firm has a running joke that the training that I gave him when I brought him in was like, here you go. And I just left for 6 months. Like that's kind of, his joke. I at the time, and again, because I grew the law firm from me, myself, and Irene, right, to where we are now, 12 attorneys, and if you include our international staff, right, I think we're close to 50 now. Look, nobody's perfect. Sometimes you're going to undertrain people, and then if that's the result you get and they leave, well then. You gotta look at like, that's okay. I did it. I tried. It helped me for the time. I'm going to do it again. I'll do it a little bit better this time. People have that syndrome where they try one thing once and it doesn't go well. And it makes them feel better to blame it on the thing, right? Like I tried a bike one time. I fell the very first time. I never got back on because bikes are stupid. Bikes are stupid. It's not me. It's not the fact that I didn't try harder or just learn. It's the bike. And you can't prove me otherwise, even though there's a ton of people riding bikes and having fun doing it. It's definitely the bike.
It's funny. I had the basically exact opposite. So somebody asked, like, hey, has anybody thought about hiring this one type of position? And I was like, yeah, I've tried that position twice. It blew up my face both times, but I still think the position's a great idea. I still think I was the problem. I don't know where, but I still think you're onto something. And then they were like, well, what was the problem? And I was like, I don't know. If I can solve that, I'll hire this position. The minute I can solve that, I'll hire this for the third time. We'll keep iterating. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's so funny to find the external issues. And the problem with that is like, I can change myself a lot easier than I can recreate how bicycles are built from the ground up. Like that's we have more control over ourselves than anything else, but we want to put the blame on the external things that we can't control.
Look, I don't want to just say this because you're having me on as a guest, but like your attitude is such a great attitude to have. It's like, I know I screwed it up, but we're gonna get it right sometime, and if you can get over, so many people take it personally, like, oh, these millennials I tried to hire and millennial blah blah blah. It's like, well, first of all, like, I'm an older millennial, right? Like, I would, and the person saying this is like, I wouldn't want to work for you either. You would be a terrible person to work for. It's you, dude. Sorry, but like, stop complaining about quote unquote millennials, right? But you don't need to be so hard on yourself. The first time you hire, you're not going to be as good as the second time and the third time and the fourth time. So you just learn and then you get better, and then hopefully you're at least attracting the right type of people. And if not, you get better at that as well. It's just nobody teaches and very few people have the innate ability to just know exactly how to hire and train. If you haven't been a part of a community or organization or a team sport where you've picked up like leadership styles and the type of firm, like you wear Hawaiian shirts, Jordan, you're constantly making jokes on Facebook, right? I've never worked for you, but it seems like a pretty jovial place to work for. You're probably, going to attract the type of people that you like to be around and that give you energy and create the kind of culture that people are gonna get it, and you're not sending mixed signals. At least that's kind of my impression. And we all need to work on those things, and it doesn't have to be like your style, just whatever it is for you.
And I appreciate that. And one of my staff members who's been with us now for 2 years specifically was like, you seem happier. And I was like, I am happier. Like I always go back to Shawshank Redemption. Like, so you're going to open your firm. You're Andy Dufresne going right into the jail. You don't know what's going on. You're going to get the shit beat out of you or worse on so many things. You're going to have, the warden's going to find that one thing you're good at and grind you to dust about it. And then you're going to crawl through a tunnel of shit to get to hanging on the beach with Morgan Freeman and, and all the stolen money. Like, there is that successful moment for everybody, but yes, you are going to go through so much. And the more you turn that into a learning opportunity, the more you turn that into growth, the more you are, the grindstone polishing you up instead of grinding you down.
Yeah. You know what? Next sales call, I'm going to tell our team, use this. Just tell them about Shawshank Redemption and then say, now, do you want to hire us? Let's see what happens. You got to crawl through shit and then you're going to be happy.
Hey. And, you joke, but like, if you set the like if we knew that it was 3 months to know that an employee is great, like if we set that expectation on day one or whatever the number is, it would be so much easier to sell people on just wait that time. It would be so much easier to sell people on a decent onboarding that's going to lead to success at the end of it. But like, you got to go through that phase. I think there's so many people online that are like, hire, become $1 million law firm in 6 weeks. There's no fucking way you can do that consistently where you are. If you're an 800,000 firm, fine. But like, if you're a 0 firm, but that's an easy thing to sell somebody on that isn't actually foundationally okay.
Yeah. Look, just for the record, I totally agree with you. It's simple, but it's not easy, and you're gonna go through a lot of sleepless nights and like, I shouldn't have hired this person. It didn't work out, or I shouldn't have dealt with opposing counsel that way. I mean, this is life, right? It's business. We're all going to have these things. But if you're, they say hire slow and fire fast. I'm kind of along those lines, right? I think you should hire fast and fire even faster, if that makes sense, right? Like you can if you're good at recruiting, you should always be recruiting, in my opinion. Like you talked about, like with the law students, right? It's a constant cycle of meeting great people and potentially having them come work for your firm later. Same thing is have ads up all the time when you get to a certain point. So your paralegals are so hard to find in recruiting. And to me, it's the hardest position law firm. So if you have a pipeline and you're always working it, you're just going to get better and better. But it is going to take, especially early on, 4 to 6 months to have somebody fully ramped up for most positions. Again, receptionist a little different, but and the more you give them, it's going to take time. And it is okay to fire fast if you absolutely know in your gut it's the wrong person, like it's the wrong attitude, they're not professional. But in terms of someone's ability to just learn and get better, yeah, it's going to take time, and the right people are going to be happy to be along that journey with you.
That's an attitude, that attitude or culture or whatever you want to call it. Like that's the soft skills that I will give somebody less bandwidth on if they're on the bad side, but more leeway if they're on the good side. Because like, this is tough, right? Like if what we did was easy, you'd have 5 million attorneys instead of, 1.5 million or whatever the numbers are now.
Yeah.
But if you get that person that's snippy with other people in the office, even if they're a rock star, that's where you're ruining that's where you're ruining everybody. Instead of throwing out the baby with the bath. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, that's the one. The attitude, the culture fit.
It's the bad apple. They're gonna ruin the rest of the bunch. So
yeah. All right. Yeah. So anything else you want to talk about from a delegation standpoint in the next? I guess we really only have about 7 minutes.
Specifically, I mean, I could chat about this stuff all day. You start with the mindset, and then you make a decision that I'm gonna hire, right? You work on your own attitude in terms of not being so hard on yourself. You work on your training and your onboarding and your systems, and then you keep falling off the bike until you get better and better.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan when you can do this about trying out potential employees as contractors. And I don't necessarily mean that from the standpoint of like actually making them a 1099, but if you're looking for, a new video editor, then have them edit one video at a contract rate. If you're looking for a paralegal, have them write one motion that you actually need on a contract basis. Like get a chance to see some of those things, how they communicate with the team, what questions they ask, what their work product looks like. Because I think it's easy for people to, I don't want to say fake it, but like give you a writing sample that is phenomenal. It's a lot different when it's like, well, on this specific case that we have that you haven't had, you can't spend 40 hours to go through and make sure this is, the perfect writing, of the highest standards. So if you got the opportunity for those things in a hiring process, I'm a huge fan.
For sure. And I wish I had come up with this next thing, but I didn't. It resonated with me so much. Let's say you need a new guitarist for your band, right? Do you sit down and ask them questions about who their favorite guitarist is and why? Or is the audition, here's a guitar, what can you play? Right? When our office manager at my law firm, one of our longest tenured employees, I was hiring for a paralegal. This is like 6-7 years ago now. And the question, like I had 3 candidates. And at the final interview, I gave them all a computer preloaded with a legal document. And I said, you're about to do e-filing here, fix this. And 2 of them just stared, and it looked like they'd never said, I'm like, that's not what your resume says. That's not what this recruiter's pushing, The third one, before I finished turning, they're like, bah, 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 I'm like, wow, she already met all, like you said, all the attitude requirements. But now, because I gave her a test, I know that she can do her actual job. So hand people the guitar. Can they actually do the job you're hiring them for? The video example is a great one. And when you're hiring contractors, because there's still a time and place for that, right? And I mentioned don't cut yourself short and hire part-time. Let's say you need a graphic designer. Not every law firm needs a full-time graphic designer. I always recommend the bake-off method. Hire 8 of them to design the same thing for $100, and then take the best 4 and hire those 4 to design something else for another $100, right? And the top 2, you have your go-to and your backup, and like that will save you so much time. Are you getting attacked there? A giant yellow jacket, like literally just right there. That's funny. It looks like you have a fake background, but you don't. Everybody.
Yeah, no.
Jordan is just in.
This is real.
The Blue Ridge area, hanging out where we all wish we were. So,
I'll be back in Orlando next week, so I'm trying to enjoy as much time. Well, depending upon what happens with this hurricane, I'll be back in Orlando next week, so I'm trying to enjoy as much time as we have in the woods. All right, so we've got 4 minutes. I just want to anything else, and I want to dive into your biggest nugget of wisdom, your most important takeaway.
No. I mean, unless you have specific questions for me, but we can dive in.
We'll end it the same way we end all of them. So for anybody who's been listening for the last 55 minutes, 56 minutes, if they remember nothing that you said, Brett, what would be the most important takeaway, the biggest thing to help more lawyers be the exhibit A of a successful attorney, such as yourself?
If you don't have an assistant, You are an assistant, and you can hire a billing clerk from day one that will change your life, your happiness. Sorry, that's two things, but man, every
No,
single
I'm in.
needs the billing clerk. Damn it, hire the billing clerk. I'm begging you guys.
You're literally hiring somebody to make more money than you are paying them that you would otherwise get without having to change anything else. Like the money's there, the invoices are there, the time is there. I'm so with you.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, for anybody who is smart enough to want to get connected with you, Brett, or with Get Staffed Up, what are the best ways for them to get in touch?
Yeah, sure. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. So Brett Trembly, easy to find. I think there's only two of us. I'm offended about the other guy out in Kansas somewhere. Or getstaffedup.com. And actually, Jordan, for your listeners and everybody that's part of your world, we created a landing page that's getstaffedup.com, of course, /legalese. And that has some free resources on there, and as well as an offer, a little discount for anybody who's happens to see this episode and says, yeah, I want to check them out.
There we go. So the best part is everybody will want to hear what you have to say, Brett, and then they'll come here and then they'll use us for a discount hearing the awesome things that you had to say. So Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. With that, thank you so much, everybody who's listened and watched. We'll see you back at the next episode. And thank you, Brett, for being with us today.
Jordan, I loved it, man. Thank you so much.